Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carlo Prusa MMA. I'm Carlo Prusa. Today, my guest is an undefeated professional mixed martial artist. He is about to make an appearance on the Dana White Contender Series here in a few weeks when he takes on Kevin Vallejos. My guest is Mr. Cam Teague. Cam, we're only a few weeks away, 2 weeks-ish away from fighting on the Contender Series. You know, what's the mindset right now, knowing you're about to go into battle and what could be one of the biggest fights of your career?
It's the same as always. War ready. I'll put in the work. I got the fight like 2 weeks ago. Got about 4 weeks to prepare, so I'm just ready to fly out to Vegas and showcase my talents to Dana White and everybody. And more ready as always.
You know, you can do so many different things in this world. You chose to go down the route of combat sports, try to be a professional mixed martial artist, and chase that dream. What led you into this crazy world of mixed martial arts?
Boredom. I always say like one day after work I was bored. I was trying to find a hobby. I checked out this gym. I was like 19, and they kicked my ass. And ever since then, I just kept coming every day, and it led me to this point.
You know, you train over there, Mobile, Alabama, train over at Port City. Some great fighters have done some work there. You know, the Kurt Halabas of the world, SD Dumas is head coach Mike Barnett's over there, Johnny Smith. What are those guys like to work with, and how do you think that benefits your fighting game?
That is great. Those guys they were ahead of me when I first started, and climbing up the ranks. I'm catching up to them. They're real good guys to lean on and look up to as a person that was getting into the sport. I'm trying to get to where they're at. So I'm hoping that with this fight right here, I get in there and I can be just another one of those guys in the gym that's at the highest level.
You know, it's pretty cool. Is maybe not so many people know about Mobile, Alabama, but if you're a fight fan, that area's got a lot of good fighting routes. Obviously, you know, the Pensacola area with Island Fights, you know, Roy Jones Jr., all those guys out of there. Mississippi's got Alan Belcher, the Mississippi boys. Obviously, you guys are in Alabama, but what is that whole community? What is that area like in terms of fighting?
It's great. I'm trying to be another one of those guys from the southern area to put on the southeast area. And, Jason Knight, Brandon Davis, all these guys are for a long time before I even got into fighting. I watched, Alan Belcher and stuff. And here I am trying to get to the same level that they're at and hoping to mix my name in there with them when people talk about southern fighters.
Have you been able to do any cross training with those guys? Have you got to be able to train with guys like Tyler Hill and Belcher and
Yeah,
Knight and
Tyler
all
Hill.
those guys?
Yeah, I go over to D'Iberville sometimes and get some sparring rounds in and train with them. It's not too often though. I might mix it up more though now that I'm trying to enter the highest level, get some better rounds. But I normally just stick to my area in Mobile. It's only like 10 minutes from my gym, and I feel like it's the best training I can get anywhere. So.
You know, one thing, if someone watches you fight, they can instantly know you're a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. I mean, obviously, you can handle things with the hands. You also have a very good skill set on the ground. You pick up some very impressive rear naked chokes. You know, the first one I want to talk about is the one over at Island Fights against Quizini. Walk me through that rear naked choke. When you're on the ground with them, it was like early there in that first round. What did you see? When did you see the opening to hit it?
Truth be told, I just think I was just better than him. He wanted to go to the ground, which I'm okay. I like to stand up and bang. Everybody knows when they see me fight that I like to be in stand-up fights, but I can handle myself on the ground too. So when I just hit the ground, I was just better. I think my coach Blake Jordan there, he gets me right. He's a black belt jiu-jitsu, wrestled in college, so I'm grappling every day. I may just be one-dimensional, I guess, and try to strike and bang with everybody, but if it hits the ground, I'm good there too. And much respect to him too. He came in on like a day or two notice. I forget. I was supposed to fight somebody else, but he came in, and that was my Island Fights.
You know, at what point in your career did you really start thinking, you know, I love the stand up, you love brawling, you love, you know, duking out with these guys on the feet. So at what point did you really start to feel that if I want to do this, I want to chase this dream, I need to be as well rounded as possible?
You just watch the highest level. Those guys are good everywhere. You can't be one dimensional if you want to compete with the best in the world. And I think I've got a good, well-rounded game, and I think I'm ready to compete with the best featherweights in the world. And I got this opportunity coming up to prove it. So I just went with the guy that was in the UFC. I fought Austin last fight. He had 2 wins in the UFC, and all his fights were competitive at featherweight. And not a lot of guys, nobody's finished him except Nate Landwehr, and he had to work really hard for it, which I had to work for it too. But that guy's in the top 15, and he was the only person that put him out. And I just did that too. So I like to think I could compete with those guys.
You mentioned it a little bit, but just took on Austin Lingo, obviously a huge opponent on the regional scene. The guy who's been in the UFC. You're able to finish him late there in that second round with the knees. Walk me through that finish. When did you figure that the knees might be the way to end it?
Honestly, it was just my coach Mike. He was just yelling knees, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna give them all of them, and that's pretty much how it went. After he put his mouthpiece back in because he spat it out while we were on the ground, I saw him taking deep breaths. My coach Mike was yelling knees, and like I said, I gave them all of them.
Following that victory, did you feel like you did enough to make it to the Contender Series or a last-second UFC opportunity?
Yeah. Before I took the fight, they're like, "Oh, if I win, it's good. You're gonna get on the map. But if you finish this guy, they're gonna call." And that's what they did. Somebody couldn't make it to this fight against Kevin, and they called me, so I took it.
Now, do you remember where you were when you got the call from the coaches or the manager that you were going to be fighting the Contender?
I was training with my boxing coach Johnny. I was just getting back into training, because I had to heal up a bit because Austin, it was a tough fight. It was a war, which I'm expecting a tough fight in this one too. But I was training with my boxing coach, and one of my managers, Will, walked in. He's like, "Abe's calling you, man." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "He's got some news for you." He's blowing up my line. So I looked at my phone, and Abe said, "I got a Contender Series shot for you if you want it." And I said yes before I even knew who it was. So.
Now, what would it mean to you to be able to fight in the UFC?
It means everything to me. When I was younger, my favorite fighter used to be Chuck Liddell. I used to watch him all the time with my grandfather when he was still here on this earth. And I watched all these guys, all these legends in the UFC, like Anderson Silva and all of them. Just to be able to get in the organization like that and have the UFC next to my name, just like those guys, man, it means the world to me.
So many people watch mixed martial arts in this day and age. They see the big names, the John Joneses, Conor McGregor's, the Kamaru Usmans, and they're like, "Oh, wow, what a glorious life! Look at these guys, celebrities." Not a lot of them realize to get there, to battle it out on the regional scene. I think it's one of the hardest things that anybody can do. The money's not great. You're not making millions of dollars fighting right now. A lot of guys have 9-to-5 jobs doing blue collar work, doing other stuff they probably don't be doing during the day. Some have kids, some have wives. They have to pay for the training. They have to get punched in the face. How do you get through all these sacrifices?
It's just part of the game. It's about the journey along the way. A lot of people just look at the end result of like, yeah, I'm gonna make it in the UFC, then I'm gonna start making money and stuff. Like, you gotta put in the work. Like, I take it one fight at a time, and I'm blessed to have the support I have with the sponsors I have. They keep me afloat. And my dad, he's a real advocate for me to get these sponsors, and I'm blessed. I'm in a good spot than most other fighters. It's just me. I only have me to focus on, so I think that's important. And that's why in a year and a half of being a pro, I'm about to fight on the biggest stage there is, and I'm trying not to just make it to the UFC, but I'm trying to stay there.
It's pretty amazing that you've made here only a year and a half. You've been very active in that year and a half. Is that something that you want to do from the get-go?
Yeah, when I was an amateur, I got sick and I was out for like 6 months. Man, I had like a swollen spleen and stuff, and injuries have really they kept me back. But it all worked out for a reason because I went pro at the right time. I got the right coaches. I got my boxing coach out of retirement, Johnny Smith, and I got Blake Jordan. He came back and he started helping my grappling and stuff. And I'm just evolved as a fighter over this past year and a half. And I believe everything happens for a reason. And who knows, man? I could have went pro too early. Could have got a couple early losses, and I might not be here right now. But I stayed the course. I kept training hard and came back and picked up those wins early on. And now I've given myself an opportunity to break into the biggest show there is.
So you're taking on Kevin Vallejos, the guy who's been in the Contender Series before, lost to John Silva in there. He's young. I think he's only 22 years old. Already has like 14 fights. But overall, what do you think of him as an opponent?
I think he's good. I'm excited for it because he likes to stand and brawl just like me. I didn't expect any grappling last fight, but Austin started shooting and stuff when he got hurt or needed a break. So I'm prepared for that too. I might grapple myself. I don't really know what I'm going to do till I'm out there and I feel out the moment, but I think he's pretty similar to the guy I just fought. He cracks hard and he's going to come out hard. And I don't know if he's kind of shorter, but I'm expecting a tough fight, a tough war, and honestly, man, it's the type of fight that if it goes the distance, we both get a contract. Because the way I fight, man, if you go the distance, you're throwing down. So,
As soon as I saw these fights, as soon as I saw your guys' record and watched some tape on both of you guys, first thing that came to my head, Bogdangrad, Michael Aswell, obviously a couple of weeks ago, both of those guys got the contract. It was a very, we're both going to come at be a Rock'em Sock'em Robot style fight. This is what I see here. Are you expecting, if someone doesn't get finished, this to be just an absolute Rock'em Sock'em Robot style fight to the end?
It's kind of fight I'm always in if somebody doesn't get finished, because my fight style, I like to say I come to finish or get finished trying. So that's what I'm going to do on the Contender Series. Ain't nothing going to change, especially in front of Dana White. And then I'm going to fight like I always do and fight the Cam Teague fight. It's going to be hectic, and we'll see if I get him out of there. If not, we'll probably just beat the piss out of each other for 15 minutes.
Especially on the Dana White Contender Series, but it just shows how mixed martial arts has changed now. You need to kind of be an exciting fighter. Guys who maybe point fight or not as fun in there, they don't get the chances, they don't get the opportunities like some of the more flashy guys. Is this something that has kind of influenced this fighting style for me?
Nah, man. My favorite fighters are Gagey and Robbie Lawler and Chuck Liddell. So I like to think like I just got molded just the way I grew up watching. My favorite fighters are always been brawlers, and it's just how I fight. I have fun in there. It may sound crazy, but the worst thing ever is to go out there for me and finish the guy in like 30 seconds, or like one of my fights in 9 seconds. Yeah, it feels great, but then afterwards I'm like, man, dude, I put in all this time for this camp. I was ready for a war, and then it's just over. I feel like when you get in the type of fight like I had last fight, and you're just throwing down, and you're both laying it all out there, it's really satisfying and really proves to you what you're worth, and you can hang with those guys. And I'm excited to mix it up in the UFC because the UFC will compensate you for that. And the way I fight, I know I'll be a pretty fan-friendly fighter. So I think me and the UFC are going to get along once I get in there.
A lot of times guys preparing for the Dana White Contender Series, they get a lot of these fights on short notice. You've only had about 3 weeks notice on this one. With that being said, how important is it for you, just mixed martial artists in general, to be training year round?
Yeah, I'm always in the gym. I'm always pretty much in camp. Like most of my fights on the regional scene, anyways, I only know who I'm going to fight like the week of or 2 weeks before. So it's not really nothing new. Like last fight I fought Austin, I only had a month to prepare, but it's pretty much the same in this regard. 3-4 weeks, it's whatever. It's just another guy in the way, bigger. It's just a bigger platform and a bigger stage. So I'm ready for it. When I get out there, I know when the cage door locks, I'm going to feel the way I always feel. I don't feel nervous. I don't have crazy high adrenaline. I'm just ready to show up and do what I do every day.
Is it true you once took a fight on 24-hour notice?
Yeah, I took a couple fights on that, especially when I was an amateur. It was like I fought the number one guy in Texas in like 3 days, man. Like I was like, yeah, I can show up at 150. I'll fight him. So yeah, as a pro, I fought one guy. He flew in on 24 hours notice. Granted, he wasn't like the best guy in the world, or he didn't have like a great record, but I prepare for these moments, and that's what really helped me get to this point now. At 7-0, I was able to pick up all these wins in a year and a half. It's a lot of fights, having 7 fights. So I haven't taken a whole lot of damage. My last fight was probably the only fight I took a little bit of damage, but I'm healed up. I'm ready to go. And ready to do the same. I said after my last fight too, the UFC called me. They need somebody on 24 hours notice or a couple days to call me, and they gave me a couple weeks. So we'll make the most of it.
So obviously this next fight's a little different from the others, but a little different also in like the venue. You know, this time there's no selling tickets. You don't need to sell tables. There's not going to be a lot of people in there. There's going to be minimal fans. Have you prepared yourself to be fighting in like a half-empty building?
I normally I really like to feed into the crowd, so it might be a little different, but I'm gonna fight the same way because in my head, I'm in front of Dana White, so I'm gonna be thinking the only person that matters out of all the crowd is gonna be there. So I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna throw down. I get like 4 tickets to give, so my dad will be there and a couple others, and they'll probably be yelling. They'll probably hear them on TV. You'll feel like I always do. I always hear them just yelling during the fight. So I'm excited for it. The venue or whatever. It doesn't mean anything to me. Or walking out in silence. They don't even call out your name. It's just you fight, and that's what I'm trained to do, man. If somebody if I was walking down the street, somebody slapped me in the face or something, I'd be ready to fight. So I feel like it's the same thing kind of here.
Have you been able to go out to Vegas yet to do all like the media day stuff and all that?
They're flying me out the 17th. So I fight the 24th. They're flying me out like pretty early. I was hoping to leave not so early, but they're flying me out early because I got to do the interviews and all that stuff they do on the Contender series.
Now, overall, what is the goal here? What is your ultimate goal? Obviously, you want to get into the UFC, but is there anything else? Have you had a clear-cut goal of what you want to accomplish in mixed martial arts when you started this journey?
I want to get in the UFC and I want to stay. I don't care if I ever become world champion. If I do, that's great. But I'm the type of guy that's gonna have like a Cowboy Cerrone type career. I feel like maybe a Jorge Masvidal. I get in there and then people they look at the fight card, they see Cam Teague's on it, they're excited for that fight. They're like, oh man, that's the fight of the night right there. And that's what I'm just gonna try to do. I love it. I love getting in brawls and firefights, and I love it. Getting in the fight of the nights. It drives my coaches crazy, but it's just who I am as a person. When I watch fights on TV, I don't want to see people hugging on the cage or hugging on the ground. Which I mean, it's fine if they're like subbing them or beating them or anything like that, but. I don't want to see a boring fight. So when I'm out there in the cage, I think of that too. Like the fans, what they're watching, they don't want to see me just lay on a guy or point fight with somebody for 5 rounds, 3 rounds. So, I'll go out there. I'm going to give it my all and come in to finish you or get finished trying.
Obviously, you guys are fighting out in Las Vegas, fight capital of the world, spinning capital of the world, whatever you want to call it, I guess. Are you already picturing when you get the job done, maybe big-time victory celebration out there?
Yeah, I think it's called Giordano's Pizza or something. It's like this deep pie dish, and I always get like a pizza after I fight. So I already looked at a place I'm going to go. They're open till like 2 a.m. I'm pretty sure we fight around 6, 7 o'clock there. So definitely just pizza. Maybe I'll invite Dana White with us, see if he comes.
All right, Cam, last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome when you take on Kevin Vallejos at the Dana White Contender Series September 24th in Las Vegas, Nevada?
I find a finish, and it's one of the craziest fights you've ever seen on the Dana White Contender Series.
All right, Cam, man. This one is marked on the calendar. It's marked on the DVR. It's ready to go. I think this is going to be fight of the night. I also think this one could be fight of the series. I'm really excited. I wish you nothing but the best, my friend. Thank you for talking to me tonight.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for us today. That's Mr. Cam Teague. I'm Carl Prusa. Stick around, fight fans.